This is a series where I play and talk about some old video games. Lately, I've been dusting off my Xbox 360 and getting back into some old favourites. I'll be replaying the first part of these games, and then we'll chat about what makes them special.
Back on me. Regrouping.
Today, we're visiting our longtime friend Tom Clancy, and we're playing one of the best first-person shooters of the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation. Back in 2006, I played a few Splinter Cell games, and a couple of the Ghost Recon series. But Rainbow Six Vegas was the first game I played from the Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six series. After I got my Xbox 360 for Christmas that year, I had enough pocket money to buy one new game for my console. I knew I wanted an action game, and at the time, the two top picks for action games for the 360 were either its exclusive launch title, Gears of War, or Rainbow Six Vegas. I agonised over that decision, reading through reviews on GameSpot, GameSpy, IGN, trying to work out which one was going to be the best for me. Ultimately, I went with Vegas, and I had very fond memories of that game. I played through the story, and I had a good time.
Going down.
Then, I had to wash a lot of cars, build a lot of fences, and mow a lot of lawns to make more money to buy Gears of War anyway, because Gears of War was the only game that my mates were playing at LAN parties. None of my mates had bought Vegas when the 360 came out. And fair enough, Gears of War multiplayer was wicked. I was too busy rolling around on Gridlock with a shotgun to remember much of Vegas after I'd completed the story. Sorry about the little personal history lesson there. Suffice to say, Rainbow Six Vegas is a superb shooter that flew under the radar for me, and I think a lot of other people at the time, because it was quickly overshadowed by heavier hitting franchises like Gears of War, Call of Duty, and Halo.
Tango down. Cleared. Tango.
In 2009, Ubisoft reported selling 3.5 million units of Vegas, which is a decent record over 3 years. But Gears of War did 3.5 million units in the first 2 months. Halo 3 did that figure in 2 weeks. And Call of Duty Modern Warfare had a similar record. So I'm not surprised that in 2007 and 2008, I was the only one at a LAN party that had a copy of Vegas. Coming back to it recently has been a pleasure. Rainbow Six Vegas is much better than I remember it being. I'd argue, if it weren't for Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Rainbow Six Vegas would be the best single-player modern military shooter of the 360 and PS3 generation. From here, I'm going to talk about Vegas's best-selling feature, its incredible combat. After I've talked about the combat, I'm going to talk about why I think the Vegas franchise flopped. Rainbow Six Vegas' combat stands out even in 2021. Driven by an excellent cover system, punchy firearms, and flexible gameplay, this video game is a mean shooter. The introductory mission dumps you in the streets of Mexico, briefly cut off from your team to hunt down a terrorist ringleader and rescue some hostages on the way. The game very quickly introduces you to its superb cover system. Left trigger snaps you to cover and pulls the view to third person, so that you can move along the cover and peek out with your analog sticks.
Logan, rendezvous at the second rally point. We're taking Khan and Gabe there.
Roger. This is the old Spanish mission.
The shift to third person gives you full awareness of what's happening in the firefight, It's not strictly realistic, but it's a good compromise to have most of the action up front in first person when you're on the move, and then zooming out when you settle into your position of cover. It's especially useful for planning room entries and engaging through doorways and windows, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later.
Open and clear.
On it. Eliminated.
From first person or from cover, you can't ignore the presentation. It's quality stuff. Weapon and movement animations are fluid, character and gun models are fairly detailed, and the environments are well constructed. While it's quality there are some telltale signs of it being a mid-2000s game. Enemy models lack variety, facial animation is fairly stiff, and occasionally it can suffer from that classic problem that a lot of games of that generation had, where everything can just look like different shades of brown and grey at times. That said, I don't really care about those issues, because Vegas has top-notch weapon effects and sound. Effects are critical details like good muzzle flare, screen shake when you shoot, filters when you take a hit, blood spray when you land a shot, environmental destruction, and weapons having good bloom and proper recoil that you need to rein in. All that is on point for this game. It's not exclusive with the guns either. I threw a grenade fairly early on and was impressed with car windows shattering, dust billowing out, and the bunting above the street swaying around at the force of the explosion. Good sound backs all this stuff up. Guns go bang with an enjoyable intensity, and the volume and the background soundscapes lend some realism to the world. You can hear muffled music, dogs barking, or the distant wail of a baby when you're loping through the streets of Mexico. Music is appropriately mid-2000s tactical military action stuff, and it kicks in at the appropriate moments. I appreciate games that let dynamic and ambient sound stand on its own from time to time. Gunfights in this game feel like the shootout from Heat, Michael Mann's film. There's no music, just the rattle of rounds going off, and the impacts and echoes that they create. So that's one thing. Shooting looks, feels, and sounds really good. But in this section, I'm not just talking about good shooting, good effects, or good sound. I'm talking about good combat. I think top-tier, single-player, first-person shooter combat needs two core ingredients: solid shooting and gameplay variety. That probably seems obvious for FPS games, but games can achieve this in different ways. Halo adds gameplay variety through its vehicle sections, and by having a wide range of enemy types. Call of Duty adds variety with large set pieces and blockbuster moments. Fear does it with intelligent enemy behaviour and horror. All of these games have solid shooting, but they have different approaches to how they achieve their gameplay variety. So, top tier, single player, first person shooter combat needs solid shooting and gameplay variety. I talked before about good effects and sounds. We've covered how shooting in Vegas already achieves that standard. Let's talk about how Vegas achieves its gameplay variety.
Two sides are nice and quick. You got it.
Sorry, Chica. Nothing personal. The police are here and the boss said no week.
Flash and clear.
You?
Flash and clear. Tango spotted. That was nice.
Vegas gets its variety through its tactics and its lethality. Tactics first. Vegas, and the Rainbow Six series more broadly, has a counter-terrorism flavour to it. These are games about Western forces violently eliminating threats to the state. Unlike Halos and Half-Lifes, they're games ultimately that are rooted in reality. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the main modern military first-person shooter juggernaut, has its foundation in reality as well, but I think that is much more of a Hollywood angle. Modern Warfare is more action hero. Rainbow Six Vegas is more grounded, more tactical. That sounds wanky, but I think I can back it up with some examples.
Fire in the hole! On your knees! On your knees!
Vegas gives you a range of different ways that you can approach your enemies. Flanking is encouraged. You can silence your weapon at will. You can adjust your rate of fire according to the situation. You can use smoke grenades to obscure enemy vision and then leverage thermal goggles to gain the upper hand. You can repel or shoot from the repel. You can scout ahead with a snake cam, and most rooms have multiple entry points.
Glad you made it, killer.
You're eventually linked up with your two colleagues, and you're given the option to direct them as well. They can be set to assault or infiltrate, and these settings affect their behaviour and their readiness to open fire on enemies. You can direct them to clear rooms in multiple ways, using breaching charges, flashbangs, smoke, frags, or direct entry. Sometimes you'll have to clear a room where there are hostages inside as well. All of these gameplay features that I've just mentioned are taught and encouraged in the first mission. In Rainbow Six's introduction, it's identifying that all these key gameplay factors are things that you should think about and consider. They are tactics that are available to you to help you achieve the mission. I'll say if it is missing one thing though, it's a melee button. You've got a range of tools at your disposal, but if you find yourself point blank with the enemy, you better be ready to just shoot from the hip. Overall, Vegas gives you a gameplay toolbox that's big enough that you can almost always approach a contact with enemies from more than one angle. When you inevitably get into a standard shootout, that's fun as well, because as we've covered, Vegas does the standard shooting really right. So that's tactics. It feels slick when you nail a room clearance and the enemy doesn't even get a shot off. The other way I mentioned that I think Vegas achieves its gameplay variety is with its lethality. This is a bit more straightforward. You and your enemies aren't bullet sponges. If you get hit too much, you will die. If your enemies get hit too much, they will die. All it takes is a few rounds to put you and your enemies down. You are always outnumbered, so this lethality and low time to kill really has an impact on how the game feels. This is one of the only single-player first-person shooters where you get one-shotted on normal difficulty in a standard firefight. For example, this sniper up on the bridge in the train yard dropped me several times. That's awesome. It gives the combat, which already feels weighty and grounded, some extra heft. I struggled through this first level on normal at times because I'd walk around a corner without checking and get completely lit up. Vegas is brutal. This lethality means that enemies are worthy adversaries, and they're smart enough to keep you on your toes as well. They'll climb through windows, they will flank, they will pop grenades. Do not underestimate them, because they will not give you time to correct a mistake that you make. The lethality is a really important part of Rainbow Six's unique feel, but also its gameplay variety. You need to use those tactics that you have available to you in order to survive each engagement.
I got him. But being better. Talk.
Fuck you!
The first level ends with a story segment. You miss out on capturing the terrorist leader, they escape, and your team gets captured. You have to fight your way out, and you're extracted to be jetted off to Las Vegas. The story isn't especially gripping in this introduction, partly because the voice acting is carrying a lot of the weight, and the standard for the voice acting isn't particularly high.
Meanwhile, we have a situation in Las Vegas.
But sir!
There's nothing you can do for Khan and Gabriel. We'll find them.
No offense, sir, but that won't cut it.
The moment-to-moment gameplay is a delight though. I was surprised, playing this game more than 15 years later, how fun it was, how challenging it was, how many times I died on normal difficulty replaying a game that was this old. Unfortunately, I think the challenge is why Vegas didn't really stick the landing and become more popular as a game or a franchise. It's a difficult game. I've played a lot of shooters, a lot of games generally, and I'm not terrible at them, but on normal, in the first mission, I died heaps in Vegas before I got into the groove. This isn't a shooter that's especially approachable. This isn't really a pick up and play game. The multiplayer suffers from a similar problem. As I'm wrapping up here, I did want to talk about that being a really important reason about why the franchise didn't really last very long. Call of Duty and Halo showed that more people would rather be action heroes in their FPS, not the tactical but fragile operators of Rainbow Six Vegas.
Break out the rope!
I loved Vegas at the time, and even now had a really good time with it playing it in current day. But that's in single player. I'm glad that Rainbow Six Siege exists now, because I think that is the perfect bridge between Vegas's campaign and the ideal Vegas multiplayer experience. Siege has captured that quick time to kill, that tactical, thoughtful, more considered approach to multiplayer matches, and the attack and defend format and the quick round times helps solve a lot of the problems that Rainbow Six Vegas multiplayer had. So that's Rainbow Six Vegas. Not a perfect game, but definitely a unique one. Its combination of superb combat, a tactical edge, but its especially lethal nature and how quickly you could die in that game might have hurt it in its multiplayer setting. As a first-person shooter, I underestimated it when I dived back into it. I don't think Vegas is underrated overall, and I doubt many people really miss playing its multiplayer. Honestly, I'm probably putting it on a bit of a pedestal by constantly comparing it to games like Gears, Call of Duty, and Halo. But in my mind, it was in that league at the time. Through its superb combat, really punched above its weight. Even with comparatively unapproachable multiplayer, sometimes a poor frame rate, and overall an average story, it sold well enough to justify a sequel. I'd recommend giving it a go. With backwards compatibility, adding stability to the frame rate, and cutting load times, Rainbow Six's campaign and its snappy shooting is worth a visit.
The first LZ was way too hot. We're inbound and will secure the rooftop of the mission. Meet us there.
Roger that.
Thanks for listening. Take care.
Las Vegas, Nevada, the ultimate party town.
Excuse me, Uncle?
But on this day, America's playground will become a battleground.
Have a good night.
Whoa! Some guy just got shot over there.
There's been an explosion on the strip. Reports of widespread possible terrorist attack.
Now, the city's fate lies in the hands of one elite squad.
We do this hard and fast.
Yes, sir.
With the absolute freedom to blow the crap out of anything they want.
Assault their position.
Detonate it!
Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas. Rated M for mature.